Hello and welcome back to Leeds United. We've got two finals for you today, and what could, in contrast to what I've said previously, actually be the final episode, regular episode at least, of this series. And that's largely because of this screen here, which sums up everything that we've achieved this year so far and what is yet to happen. You can see the FA Cup final and the Champions League final are on the cards still. Community Shield, Super Cup, Carabao Cup, Premier League, all dealt with. Premier League handedly. Don't know what really happened there. Looked like no one else was really ready to play. We are 26 points clear, 2 games remain. One horse race this year. It's only happened, I think, once or twice in the 8 years we've played so far, so there's normally a contender. This time, they've all decided to be a little bit rubbish, and we've decided to go, we'll capitalise on that and go for it. So, 99 points, 2 games to go. We could break 100 points here quite easily in those 2 remaining games, which we're not going to cover. And yeah, there's 2 remaining games. And yet, but you can see it above my head here and compare it to the date at the top, which we're not actually technically on final day. The FA Cup final is tomorrow in-game. There's 2 Premier League games remaining. Yeah, I don't know either. However, I'm not on final day just to make sure one situation has not filtered its way out of my inbox yet, because it is one of the funniest things I've ever seen in Football Manager. So, I need to provide a bit of context before we delve into this. It involves Dominic Szoboszlai, whose contract runs out at the end of the 2031 season. So summer of 2031, we would lose Dominic for free. It's the summer of 2030 this year, so he has 1 year left on his contract at the end of this year. I was not aware of this fact. We had not been prompted with the 18-month news article that you sometimes get, where we say they've not started negotiations on a new contract or anything like that. I didn't get that news, so this in my inbox was a surprise. Dominic came to me saying he was going to explore his options at the end of his contract. Bear in mind, he'd only be 30 at the end of his contract, so still in his prime. I very much wanted to keep him around because I love the lad. So, obviously, went into that conversation trying to convince him to stay. Not messing around, I went for the convince options. First round, I want you to stay, please stay with us. He wasn't having it, but you get the second opportunity to click a convince option. So, second round, click convince. Dominic says, hey, I can feel your passion, mate. I'll stay then. We've got Dominic to stay. That's fantastic. We've offered a new contract that will start at the end of the season. It's 30 grand more a week. He's really not worth it, frankly, just in terms of overall star quality. He's an unbelievably consistent performer and will be with us for a few years remaining. Not that you'll probably see it now, but I figured it was useful at the very least to keep him happy for these finals. At 11:10 at night, 10 minutes after we've had this conversation with Dominic, Eurosport pop in, somehow aware of this conversation. Apparently, we also need to include Eurosport in the phone tapping scandal, where I tell them basically he's very likely to stay. 5 minutes after I've dealt with Eurosport, I get, well, it's probably actually best to show you, this message. I persuaded Dominic to stay so hard, he sacked his agent. Dominic left his agent after reports of a disagreement as to whether or not the player should explore his options at the end of his contract. His agent was trying to get him to leave, and I convinced him so well to stay, he sacked him. And the even better part of this is look at the people on his books. Auric also has Rasmus Christensen and Brendan Aronson, former Leeds players, on his book. And not only does he have Christensen and Brendan Aronson, I think there may be a Salzburg connection here, by the way, looking at the list of players. Not only does he have those players who start at Leeds in the save on his books, he also has Kelvin Yeboah, who, if you go on his profile, is related to Anthony Yeboah. Now, I've not done this bit of research, but I would not be surprised if Anthony Yeboah either is or is connected to Leeds icon Tony Yeboah. I'm not sure why they'd be listed as 2 separate names in the game, but it's a little weird that that's Anthony and this is Tony. So, but you can also see under favoured personnel a couple of the players, Dominic, João and Eddie, all on that list. Milovanovic enters icons. He's been there a little while actually, but yeah, Milovanovic is under icons. Not entirely certain why. Like ahead of Dominic and these, ahead of these 3, I'm not certain why. We're under Legends, of course. We got that for winning the Champions League last year. Jose Lebego's in Legends. He's just speedrun Legend status. I understand why I'm there. 4 Premier Leagues and a Champions League. Jose Lebego's just gone straight in there. Admittedly, every year that he's been here, we've won the Premier League. And he is a great player. He's not Haaland levels of great, but he is a great player. His international record is now as incredible as his normal record. 85 league games, 87 league goals. 8 caps for Portugal, 8 goals for Portugal. He's a machine. But yeah, fan opinion, legend, essentially. Close to his full potential. Apparently, who needs any more potential when he's bagging goals left, right and centre this season? 32 goals in only 27 appearances so far in the Premier League. 24 starts in the Premier League. Bear in mind we played 36 games and he scored 32 goals. Yeah, Now, Premier League, in a little bit more detail. 6 goals clear of Dane Scarlett. Erling Haaland only 22 goals this year. Bear in mind he is 29 in his prime and looks like this. And that's, yeah. Yeah. He scored 278 goals in 290 league games for Manchester City. It's as dumb as you'd expect from him, but bizarrely, weirdly, a worse record than Lebego in goals per game. And yeah, bear in mind on this page, it does say 54 and 52. That's including the Club World Cup where he scored 8 in one game. Yeah, that was the thing that happened. In terms of overall squad news, there's not really much in the way of a surprising emergence in our squad. Pretty much everyone that was expected to come through has come through. The only person I think that we could probably regard in this manner is, I'm going to stick with it, I think that's Ija. I think that's the way it's written, I still haven't looked it up. But Johansson, who basically can just technically do some things and not really do anything else, apparently. He can pass and take a free kick and dribble a bit. It's a bizarre array of technicals, actually. They're either very good or non-existent. Admittedly, some of them are 9s, but mentally great, physically great. Perfectionist personality is also useful there. He's still in on 27 grand a week and hasn't kicked up a fuss about that yet, but he has putted an average of 7.34 in his performance this year. He has 12 goals in 24 starts and 9 assists. Like, those are Dominic Szoboszlai numbers, who continues to do that kind of thing. And actually, to confirm that, Dominic has 12 goals and 10 assists. So, 1 more assist than Johansson. They are almost identical in their performances this year. But Dominic has been playing box-to-box a little bit more just because of the array of attacking playmaker talent we've got now in the form of Johansson, Dronelay, etc. So, still not fully certain what to do with Bertrand. He's played a few games, but he's not developed, obviously, as a result. And Nicholas Wright has played a few games, did score on debut, and then hasn't done anything in the 4 of the games that he has played, but I think he's going to be useful. The good thing about Nicholas Wright is he is essentially the exact Nketiah follow-up, because he plays the exact 2 positions fully strongly, with a strong right foot and a competent left foot, strong left foot as well, so he can play on the right. He would be an incredible utility player going forward for the bench. And Rui Moura did learn left-hand side properly. Not fully green yet, but he's now actually got proper gold stars there, which means those not fantastic mentals to begin with aren't going to be tanked any harder by playing in a position he doesn't understand. I would never, although in fairness, I will never get that. Like, if you can play one side, you know how to play the other, surely. Yeah, he's not great, really, but still regarded 2 stars. But the problem, and the oversight I made going into this FA Cup final against Everton, is that we played Everton midweek in the Premier League, beat them 3-0, but I kept Lebego on that pitch because I wanted to make sure he won the Golden Boot, and they broke him. Yeah, playing the same opponent midweek before a cup final, shouldn't have played my best players. I rotated everywhere else except really up front, and of course they break him. They also broke Kohler, but that doesn't really matter. Why is Elliot upset with his playing time? No, hang on, he's not upset with his playing time. He's upset with his agreed playing time. Yeah, I don't think this is actually a message about not playing enough. I think this is a message that his status isn't what it should be. Yeah, so he just wanted his agreed playing to be squad player. That's fine, because he's going to play the remaining 2 Premier League games because they don't matter. What I have an issue with here is that apparently actual playing time is surplus to requirements when he's featured in 22 games this year. He's made 13 starts and 9 substitute appearances, and that's apparently surplus. Milovanovic and Nketiah have made more substitute appearances, but he's made more appearances than both of them. He's started more games than both of them. And Eddie's been here 6 years and not kicked up a fuss about being a rotation option this year, or last year, or the year before. Like, bear in mind the last 3 years, Nketiah has made more substitute appearances than starts. In fact, I think Nketiah's only made 1 year where he's had more starts than subs, and that's that year there. I don't understand how that's surplus. Also, irritatingly, quite a lot of these youngsters, apparently recently I learned this, but apparently the big match thing doesn't appear until they're 22. Annoyingly, quite a lot of our players don't like big matches, which could be a problem, because we're about to play one. So yeah, Premier League doesn't matter at this point, other than getting 1 point and getting to 100 points, really. I think I'm going to take a mild risk, as I need to take a broken Kohler off the bench. But I think I'm going to take a mild risk. It's 89% for SMS because he did play the last game midweek as well. Thinking I was going to rotate him out, but he's still our best box-to-box midfielder at 35. I've agreed another year to his contract, by the way. But Kyle Secchi in goal, Keane, Undika, Milenkovic, Gottschling, our back line. Keane has usurped Valeria's first choice left back, by the way. That actually is an emergence and change in team structure. Ruxel, SMS. Dominic is going to play the advanced play role as a kind of a leader in the team. Johansson is more sharp than him, but I think there's just this familiarity, this sort of winning team, this winning set of players in the middle is probably a little bit more useful than the youngsters who have just come through this year. Also, having Dronelay on the bench helps to cover the lack of Pedro, who is also knackered, because they can play inside forward on the left. Nketiah, Moukoko and Milovanovic up front. Now, I'm hoping for something from Milovanovic here because 8 goals in 10 starts isn't terrible. Nketiah has 6 goals in 9 starts. Moukoko has 17 goals in 38 starts. So, honestly, a little bit disappointing for Moukoko this year in terms of goals to starts. but he does have 10 assists, as I accidentally clicked the go button. Feels João Pedro should have been picked. You're on 80% fitness, mate. I'd love to have started you, but I think you broke yourself in the 3 games in between and didn't, get fully fit again. Chris Kavanagh looks absolutely shocked at being here. It's a good team from Everton, and they've got Conte as a manager, which if you think that's weird, he did manage Wolves before this. And the one advantage here is, apart from SMS, it does look like their team is that marginally a little bit more tired than ours to start with, as SMS stands over this free kick. They've obviously fielded a much stronger side against us midweek than we did against them. But we are obviously playing this game without Lebega, who was a casualty there, and without Pedro, who either was a casualty there or was a casualty immediately thereafter. So we are marginally weakened as a result. Milivanovic and Nketiah should be more than enough, though, as Ndicka gets his 13th goal of the season. I complained about... Actually, that was back post. Why did that go to the back post? Was it a free kick? Or a corner? It was a free kick, yeah. That makes more sense. But that's his 13th goal of the... Actually, that was a free kick, not a corner. But, yeah, which changes what I was about to say. Our defenders at corners have been a lot more potent this year than they have in previous years, for whatever reason. I've not changed the tactic. It's been near post the entire time, as you'd expect, really, because that's the done thing to do in FM. But they've been a lot better this year at getting them in. They've sort of increasingly got better year on year at getting goals from corners as a result. But Mokoko's gone for that. The further he ran, the less confident I felt that was going in, because that's how football manager works. The longer the dribble, the more likely you get the old, that deserved a goal at the end highlight, and very rarely does it actually get a goal at the end. Zobazai puts the ball in. Milenkovic almost proving my point about corners there. So I think Milenkovic was going to run out of contract at the end of this year, but we got him a new one last year to extend that another couple, just because we kind of felt that the people coming through weren't quite ready to take over just yet. Nuno Rodriguez on loan is developing quite nicely, and I think will actually challenge for that first right-sided defender spot next year. Ndicka remains first choice left-sided defender, no matter what, but he's a little bit younger than Milenkovic, so he's still got another couple more years in his prime, where I don't need to panic about that left side. Kola is developing okay as well. This, I feel like, is almost going to be I thought that was going to fall bizarrely to Milovanovic there. I thought it was going to be one of those highlights where something dumb happens. I felt like Milovanovic was offside, but Nketiah's been bundled over, but I felt like Milovanovic was offside in the build-up to that. I'm guessing he was, otherwise we wouldn't be seeing this. Yeah, so Everton not content with breaking my star striker, now give away a penalty. Not saying they're a rough team, but, there's a trend. Dominic Szoboszlai beats T-Rex arms Pickford, who obviously just couldn't reach it. I still maintain that first goal that France scored would have been saved by someone with longer arms, and we wouldn't have been out of the FA Cup. This is the FA Cup. We wouldn't have been out of the World Cup in real life as a result. But never mind. I'm still very annoyed that they brought... I think Pope was injured for the World Cup, wasn't he? But I'm still annoyed that they brought Ramsdale and didn't play him. Imagine having the best 2 English goalkeepers available to you and then playing the third one. There's something to be said for loyalty, but there's also something to be said for talent, which Pickford has, but the other 2 have more of. It's no discrediting Pickford, he is a good goalkeeper, but now that both Pope and Ramsdale have had a full season kind of fully displaying how good they are, I don't think there's really an excuse for continuing playing Pickford. As they get one back there, there's questions offside, but I think it's a misleading highlight. I think he was onside, because obviously he's in the goal basically when he puts it in, but at the point in which the ball is pinged across, I suspect they're well onside. I mean, the lack of a tackle there does concern me. And he might actually be behind the ball. Yeah, it's not even being considered. Okay, so we'll move Dronley into the AP spot, bring Wright on, and then Makoko for Bargy. Really want to change my right back, but I've only got a certain amount of substitutes here. I'm about to say no more highlights, but it's a free kick for us in the 94th minute of 95. 5 minutes added time for whatever reason. I smell shenanigans there. Rooney Bargy steps over it. That's headed on. It's bounced and it's going to be referred to offside, but I'm struggling to work out how. Yeah, it is awarded. My only concern was that Ndicka was somehow offside when this header goes in, which he categorically isn't. My only concern was those 2 defenders recovered after that header was put on and he was actually offside. Why is he being referred then? Milovanovic is the one who heads it on. I don't know why that highlight was drawing a line. Maybe it was drawing a line for where Milovanovic was, and it just looked like it was drawing a line for where Ndicka was. Maybe that's what. Maybe I'm misinterpreting that line, as I obviously, once again, stand off the podium for the celebrations. Why is that a thing? It's such a minor thing that I don't understand is a thing. Why am I stood here, and who are these people with red glasses? Why have they colour coordinated their eyewear? What is this all about here? A, just put a bigger platform in, and B, let me stand on it. And why are the referees just being quarantined behind a panel on the right-hand side as well? This animation, they've obviously done the European celebrations. They've done them up with the appropriate boardings and what have you. Why is the regular trophies, as I've finally done the double, why are the regular trophies still this naff? Well, they've scored 8 goals there. Man City against Sunderland. Good lord. Sunderland could still stay up. There's 1 game to go for them. Well, Newcastle lost their game by the looks of things. Oh, they drew it against Liverpool. Okay. Still got a game in hand. That might be against us. It is. So that's 5. And quite frankly, the FA Cup was the most important one of those 2 because that now means we have won every trophy available. And therefore, I feel comfortable dipping out of this save now. There's a very good chance I still just play it offline casually over the next couple of months or whatever. And I could bring you back in for a review just to let you know how things were going on and how people have developed over, like, say, 3-4 years. But in terms of a regular seasonal check-in, that's not going to happen now, I don't think. Now, not going to lie, I am going to instant result these 2. I'm not going to faff around. I'm not going to play them in full just in terms of keeping my recording time down. I'm on a schedule here. And I will say, for the sake of full transparency, I have instant resulted a few games. Those have typically been like these games against Sunderland, and like Forest away maybe. Teams in the relegation zones, to be fair, those games have come out fairly low, and they're often the games where we've actually had a red card, frankly, is the ones that we've instant resulted. But it's the games against like Stoke, for instance, and Sunderland, and Norwich, who have actually been a bit tricky in the past, but they're not having a very good season. Those games I have instant resulted, the ones where you're almost guaranteed to win anyway. I've effectively applied the FIFA principles of simulating games. Away games I've obviously given a little bit more care of. Like I've played them properly, pretty much across the board except for the relegation threatened teams. And anything in Europe, I think I may have instant resulted the last 2 Champions League games where we've already guaranteed top 8. So sort of games like that I've done, and I instant resulted the Carabao Cup all the way through to the semis, I think, as well, because I don't care about the Carabao Cup. Everything else I played in full, but these last 2 we will just simulate because they don't matter at all, and I want to get to the Champions League final as quickly as possible. So yeah, I'd just like to give you the full transparency on that kind of thing. Like, this has all been done pretty much 80 to 90% live, in full, fully meticulously, bringing the subs on as appropriate to make sure they get the development time. Because I know there is a tendency for this instant result to be a little bit more kind than live. So I didn't want to mislead you in that sense, which is why I restrict myself to using instant result on games that you probably should be winning anyway. I still find it weird that Ten Hag is Benfica manager and Pep is Ajax manager. How? Yeah, he weirdly went from Man City because they felt it was the time for a change to Arsenal, who then won the Europa League, and then they sacked him, and then he was hired at Ajax. There's the Zoboszlai contract sort of vaguely going through. And there it is actually going through. Yeah, so he's got a 30 grand raise. At 29, he's got 3 years on his contract with an extra bonus year. Like I say, not that it's relevant, but I've rested the lads and they're still absolutely knackered. How the hell's that happened? Like, I understand them not being at like 95 or whatever, but how are they at 82? They were rested for 2 days. How are they this tired? Anyway, not that it matters. Milenkovic is oddly fine. And of course, Pedro is fine. I think I've just clicked into the result on this. I've just gone into this and we've lost to Newcastle again. That's fine. But even instant result isn't perfect. But at the very least, it proves that that's not a instant win button. Oh, I should have said youth intake. These are the youth intake players underneath Nicholas Wright, who gets Homegrown Club at the end of the year. But we got another Charlie Savage and a fantastically named Liam Waterfall McCrum, who sounds like he's from, I want to say Plumpton. If you get the reference, you get the reference. The Spanish lad is, I think, the only one with a solid amount of potential. Last year's centre-back is apparently developing nicely and has 5-star potential now. Along with Femi Terry, who is also in last year's, has got more potential than he seemed like he had in the intake. But yeah, Falke is the only one in this year's intake. I think that is pretty strong. I think Wiley might have been last year as well. Andy Butler is another goalkeeping option that came through this year. I don't think he's going to be great, but the more goalkeepers we get that could be competent, the better backups we've got going forward. Now, obviously, I want the 100 points, but I don't really care about it enough to play it properly. Now, Keane's backed off immediately as soon as I've talked to him about that new contract. Yeah, we've had that dance all year with Keane. Well, there's a World Cup at the end of this year, of course, so that's a lot of people being called up to that World Cup. Looks like Australia and France are in the same group. Barounis will face off against 3 of his team compatriots, I know he said there, 3 of his teammates. I think remarkably, actually, all our players have avoided each other in the group stages. That's probably because all the, typically high countries and they're probably seeded first. But, Serbia, Republic of Ireland might not be seeded first in their respective groups, so it's kind of impressive they've managed to dodge each other. Egypt as well, they're probably not first seeds. And actually, looking at this list of World Cup players we've got, we're 8 years in here, we're starting to sort of replace real players with new gens, almost across the board in the team. Like, we've still got a fair healthy amount of original players in our first 11. As a full squad here, even Duncan Elliott's included in the England squad, we've only got 1 South American, and that's João Pedro. It's not even a new gen. We've got 1 Egyptian and 1 Australian. We've got as many from Oceania and Africa as we do South America. We've actually kept it very much in Europe in this save, which is, I know we only get to sign 6 foreigners under 21 a year. The fact that none of the South American talent that we've actually have brought in have actually made an impact on our squad is He's a little unusual, really, for an FM save. You don't really see that happen that often. Like, it's not been intentional that we've not had South American talent in. I've tried left, right, and centre to get them through. You know, and even the play, if you look at sort of the list of players we've got, even the players that aren't going to the World Cup, you know, Johansson's obviously international for Iceland. Some of the wonder kids we've got in sort of around the squad, Mora's from Portugal, Bertrand's Belgian, Elhami's Dutch, and he actually has caps for Netherlands, but apparently hasn't made it into this one. He has one cap for Netherlands. All right, so this is the last game of the season. I just want to make sure people get their medals. Yeah, no one's on 4 league appearances, so no one's on the threshold there. Lebego's not even back to play this game. Thank God he secured his golden boot pretty much with games to spare. That being said, we'll give a couple of people their moment to shine. Amer is a centre-back. I think the start ratings are faded by the fact he's not fully there yet. Andrew Moore will start this game just because I want him to get that little bit more game time. He's on 14 games total, so one more will get him to 15, which is a nice checkpoint for that. But yeah, we kind of do want to get at least a point out of this game, so I'm not going to rotate too hard. And there we are, 2-0 winners. They actually took off Amer, but whatever. So 102 points, 3 draws, 2 losses, both to Newcastle. Sunderland actually get a result on the final day, but still go down because Norwich also got a result against Brighton. What a final day that was, actually. 4 teams in the mix. Leicester are also in danger a little bit. Goal difference effectively saved them. But I think if Brighton had beaten Norwich, if Brighton had beaten Norwich, Norwich would have gone down because they played each other. That kind of effectively made Leicester a little bit safer than they looked. And they themselves got a point. Oh, they actually got a point. So if they hadn't got that point, they'd have gone down instead of Sunderland. Yeah, not surprised by this, to be honest. I did just highlight that he was on 27 grand a week. I think, to be honest, he's being fairly reasonable. He'll agree to 80 by the looks of things. Yeah, good. No other faff on him as well. Yeah, so there's no one on the borderline. Brandon Williams was the only one on 4 stars, but he had a substitute, so there was no need to bring him into the squad for that final game. And everyone else was on like 1 or 2. So there was no one on the borderline, but a successful campaign nonetheless. Calvin Phillips will leave us at the end of the year, unfortunately. I suspect he may retire. I'm surprised he hasn't actually called his retirement. 33 wins is a new record, probably off the Man City 32. 102 obviously beats Man City's 100 by 2 points as well. Barone wins the... Barone's been... I didn't realise Barone had 1 year left on his contract. He's agreed to go to Gladbach. The only other kind of South American that could have made an impact so far, really. But only as a squad player. He never learnt the left-hand side with the right foot. I'm not too sad that he's going, but yeah, we did pay money for him. Casaneve will be our backup next year. Raya's going. We've actually also agreed Jan Musso to come in at the end of the year. Again, not that next year is relevant to you guys, but we do have a 35-year-old Musso coming in as a backup goalkeeper next year as well, in case we do want to loan him out again. In theory, they'll be our 3 goalkeepers. Raya's leaving at the end. Lebego does win Golden Boot, despite not playing the last 2 games. And the Players' Player of the Year. Oh, sorry, that was Football of the Year. That's the goal-scoring award. Johansson is Young Player of the Year at 22, because that's a thing. Karnasecchi's Golden Glove. That last clean sheet probably helped. Ramsdale, oh, yeah, they got close. Oh, something I didn't realise. Chelsea bought Georgi Mamadashvili, who does look better now, in fairness, and he's worth an incredible amount of money, but he spent effectively a year and a half because of how the seasons work. He spent effectively a year and a half at Palmeiras after we sold him for 12.5 million, which was a massive sale considering how poor he was for us. But he developed to the point where he was worth 35 million for Chelsea, and they bought him. Like, this is a baffling rags to riches story because he was so terrible for us. 6.4 average in the 3 games that he played for us there. Admittedly, a 7 average in the 11 games he played there, but that is largely because he played continental games where we obviously dominated in. He still conceded, in the non-continental games, he conceded 8 goals in 8 appearances. And that season, he conceded 10 goals in 10 appearances. Basically, he conceded every single game that he played in for us. And then he went to Brazil, developed, and he's gone to Chelsea and still basically conceded in every game he's played, but somehow come up with a better rating. The crazy part of him is he's got 17 clean sheets there, but still conceded 56 goals in 61 games. 36 goals conceded in the Premier League, but 17 clean sheets, which means 21 games he's conceded 36 goals in. Basically, he's either on it or he isn't. Players Team of the Year, that makes a lot of sense. Musso is Serie A's Goalkeeper of the Year, and he's coming to us as a backup. Football Manager. And before we actually get into this final, because you're not going to see them, effectively, there's Musso, because you're not going to see them, because our under-21 quota for the year was filled, I had to sort of sign this guy at the end of the year rather than immediately. So he's 19 when he's going to come in, but yeah, he's going to come in as a 5'11", not a centre-back, probably DM. I think he might be the de facto DM behind Ruxel. But yeah, speaking of South Americans, we might get another one eventually now via Chile. He's got 3 caps for Chile already. And then this gentleman's coming in for a reasonable amount of money, actually. I don't know why he's not happy. Unhappy not being able to join Leeds United, joining Leeds United. I don't know what's going on there. We had one round of things and his contract was declined, so he went round again, had to pay more, and then agreed a new contract. So he is a centre-back, he is 6'3", and he is right-footed. He might actually immediately usurp Nuno Rodriguez in the pecking order. He is that good. But I will just give those players that we didn't really focus on a little bit of a moment here just because of that. You know, we didn't really focus too much on Bertrand there. He's developed a little bit. He's listed as a DM, probably more of a DM than some of the others, but he's still kind of effectively largely regarded as playmakers. Most of the midfielders I've signed have been playmakers first and foremost, but I was sort of using him as the primary choice for DM backup. But again, now he might end up playing further forward with a more dedicated DM coming in. Fontaine didn't get a work permit. He went out on loan, now has a work permit, but 6 foot flat, 12 jumping reach. Again, he was probably a consideration for DM rather than centre back. Frost from Burnley. Got a lot of places he can play in. That's probably because they've just been shoving him anywhere in the unders somehow. But again, playmakers are kind of top of his list. And Amer we didn't really focus on. He played that last game, but he is 6'5", 14 jumper reach. Whilst he came in with only DM, he is a centre-back. So that was kind of the rest of our intake this year, which we didn't really focus on too hard last time round. I just felt because we're not going to really see them develop, I figured I'd at least show you them, and just because I didn't really show you them in the halfway stage video, because I didn't really think it was worth your time seeing players that may not feature. I thought I'd at least show you them now, just to give them that little bit of respect that they kind of do deserve still. I'll also say loan-wise, we've got a lot of people on loan, they're doing well. There's Nino Rodriguez on the top, 3 stars. Like I say, he's well positioned to be taking over next year. Matt Cox is finally developing on loan at Portsmouth, but he's still only 2 stars. It's a shame he's not developing more. That jovial personality I have now since learned is actually a negative personality. And kind of the only one I kind of want to talk about, there's sort of, there's a couple of Brazilians in here who are still only 2 stars. Like I say, they've not really made much of an impact. Daniel's got a bit more potential. He might be okay. And there's Danilo on a Heidenheimer. He hasn't got a face, but again, he's still got potential, but not really developing. So there's a few Brazilians in it. They've just not made much impact. The one I do want to talk about, though, is Faris Toplis, who still doesn't have a face, but he was in our first ever intake. And he is kind of competent now. Problem is, he's got a lot of positions learned, but none of them are kind of useful for us. Because he's right-footed, but knows wing-back left. Wing-back right would at least be useful. And inside-forward left would be useful for us. So the 2 positions he should be in, he has perfectionist personality. Those are the 2 positions we'd use him in, and he hasn't really developed either of them because he's been on loan all the time. But we loaned him to Leicester, who barely survived this year. So he's had Premier League experience this year and has developed into 2.5 stars. So he and Barunas, despite Barunas getting a face and Toplis not, were both part of our first intake here 8 years ago. Well, 7 years ago, I suppose. I don't think he's a lead. Oh, potential to be a leading Premier League midfield. That makes more sense. I was going to say, decent. Like, he could be rotation options. The problem is we've got enough options, really. But as a homegrown player, him and Baronis on opposite sides are useful options to have in the squad now going forward. And Delfino, a player that I thought was going to be okay, has finally got okay on loan at Sporting. Also, Gusso we got in a little while ago. Gusso is one of those interesting ones because he was from those Spanish under-19 named teams, which I always say can have a gem in them occasionally. Often they tend to be of like low Premier League potential. Gusso's potential is a little bit higher than you usually get out of them. Occasionally they do have a player of reasonable quality, slightly 2 stars, but a lot of yellow on him. I think it's his physicals letting him down. He's not quite got there yet. How does he have England trained in, but not Leeds trained in? Oh, because I've sent him on loan to English teams. Yeah, his average rating's not great, but so the only kind of real spectacle about this Champions League victory here, should we get it, is it will be back-to-back. As much as I'd like to win it, it's not really imperative that we do so. Zach Steffen is retiring. I mean, I know it's 2030 in the game, but that makes me feel old. Surprisingly, Lebego's sharpness hasn't taken a massive hit from that injury. He's still at 90% sharpness, so in danger, really. Is Milinkovic-Savic our best box-to-box player still? He is. Okay, so we'll run with him then. We get 12 subs in the Champions League, don't we? So feels wrong not to bring Phillips into the bench at least. Karnasecki, Keane and Dicker, Milinkovic, Gotchling, Ruxel, Milinkovic-Savic. Dronley will start this one as the better attacking playmaker. Pedro, Mokoku, Lebego. We're back to full strength at the front. Pedro has 24 assists this year, by the way. 24. After a very low output last year, Pedro has turned up this year. I guess contracts might be something to do with that. I spent the majority of last year fighting to get him a contract. Now, they've got a front 3 that are all new gens, which is interesting to see from a major side in, Europe, because it's still largely just youth players that have developed. They're playing Livramento, they're playing him at left back, which is not the place to play him, but Upamecano, De Ligt still there. Porro right back, Kimmich still there, of course. Camavinga they acquired, Musiala still there, of course. But then 3 brand new players in these 3 positions. Wait, they've got Valentin Antov on their bench. He's quite good in this save. If you do not know my story with Valentin Antov, it's a very long and storied one. I've had him in many saves, and I love the lad. It's nice to see him there. I mean, he's a rotation option for them, clearly, but away we go. Champions League defence. Playing the usual formation, not sort of carrying and playing a more defensive one. It is a neutral venue, of course, in Greece. Camavinga pings us over. This is the first time we've had a highlight. Gotchling heads it. What? That clearly hit his head, not his hand, in the engine, like in the visual. Also, is handball anywhere an automatic yellow card? I'm not certain handball anywhere is an automatic yellow card, is it? Well, that's not helpful. I think rather than crazy and substitute anyone after 27 minutes, I'm just going to do that. Maybe at half-time we'll make a substitution and get an actual right back on, but it's a good job we won that FA Cup, and we're probably going to end this series now anyway, because This is one of those matches that makes you just want to put down FM for a couple of months. If that had gone in, I'd have been annoyed as well. Just headed over, but Carnage said she didn't react to it until after it had gone over. Match momentum entirely Bayern Munich, so we look very comfortable in possession right now. Is that my assistant manager? Please tell me that's not my assistant manager giving me that feedback, because he's getting fired. Oh, I then didn't actually substitute anyone off at half-time. I mean, considering it's Bayern Munich, we're sort of doing okay as things stand. Makoko and Pedro are tired already. Okay, so now's the time to... This actually weirdly often works when I've had a sending off. This is the 6th sending off this year, by the way. I know a couple of them have come through the instant results, because they have a tendency to do that, but anytime I've gone down to 10 men, just sticking on Mazzala and moving the inside forward has kind of actually covered things. Probably ought to do left back as well because he's booked and tired. Ruxel also now tired. 15 minutes, Calvin Phillips is going to have to survive. Get Livramento sent off. Yeah, so defensively we're no real different. Just obviously we're lacking one of the wingers as that's not a foul. That was probably the most foul I've had in this episode, and yet we've had a sending off. That's not going well. Great block, Carnesecchi. Fantastic work from our defence there. Don't often get great block highlights, but that was one. Do I? I don't think I actually have any more substitutes, right? Oh, well, 93 minutes probably on the clock here. Yep, there we go. It's injury time. We've had a sending off. We've had an injury in the first half. Of course, that was 1-0 to them. So we missed out on the sextuple, but it's one of those matches where I can't be sad about our performance because it's one of those matches where the match engine has just decided you're going to get everything against you. We're gonna play FM bingo here. And we're going to give you everything that's going to work against you there. The only thing we were missing was an offside goal, really. What a way to cap things off. What a way to cap things off. But, we won it last year, so I'm not annoyed at losing it as a whole. Look how many bookings they had and didn't get anyone sent off, and yet we had that for a handball where the player was unchallenged. I feel confident that you don't just get a yellow card for handballing generically. Like it's like, oops, you've handballed it, there's a foul. But, he was under no pressure. There was no opponent near him. It's just hit his hand on his way down. He's not gained any benefit from it. Of course, because it's 2 yellows, I can't even challenge it. But I think, again, I said it last year, I think ironically you get more money for losing it because you don't have to pay out as much. Someone announced their retirement there, but I don't think it was one of our players. Linkovic and Johansson in the dream team. Maybe I should have played him and not Dronley. Carnesecchi not in top 3 goalkeepers. I didn't even play Raya that much this time around, so I don't know why he's not there. Really, Bargi's in midfielders, because of course he is. Milenkovic in defenders. No Johansson, despite him being in the dream team. And no Labego either. Osman's still at Napoli, and they were knocked out in the quarters. Manchester City were knocked out in the round of 16. Manchester City were knocked out in the round of 16, and Haaland gets forward of the season. And dream team. Sort your game out, Football Manager. Jose Labego's got to that final and put in a 7.2 in the Champions League. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. He scored 14 goals, Haaland, but all of them were in the group stages. They got knocked out in the round of 16, guys. Average rating isn't everything if you haven't played every game. There's a Lincoln Red Imps player in the top 5 here. Did he get in the dream team? No, of course he didn't, because he didn't get anywhere. Actually, out of curiosity, how good is this Lincoln Red Imps player if he's in the top 5? Because have Gibraltar actually produced a good player here? He's 18, he doesn't look that good, but good for them, but not generally. Ironically, Brandon Williams is the best average rating of the players we signed. Some of them went into the unders and some of them got loaned out, of course, but these are the only ones to feature first team football. We've done all the loans, so we won't cover them again. B- for winning the Premier League. That seems wrong. 6-0 against Accrington Stanley, biggest net win. Actually, we had no massive win like we had last year. Apparently 4-0 against Cardiff is a match to remember. Not the 6-5 against Manchester City, which is obviously the one for this year. Sponsorship's way up, which is helpful. And there's the team of the season, which is kind of no surprises when you think about Johansson's average rating. That's pretty much what I would have expected to have seen. Bargi ahead of Makoko is a thing. September, October, December, January, February, April, May. Manager of the year. Yep, that'll do it. Most clean sheets for Carnesecchi, 8 years in. New record. 2 red cards for Gottschling gets him the discipline record. I'm actually kind of glad he got sent off there and got that record in a weird way, because that record was going to go to Ruxel, who had a bunch of yellow cards and 2 red cards as well. He was about to win the worst discipline record, but one of those red cards got rescinded, and yet it still counted against his record for the year, which I think is something that got overlooked in the coding there. But 42 goals in the season is obviously a record. 24 assists is incredible, actually. That's beaten Dominic Szoboszlai's record. Yeah, 5 trophies all told. Just Champions League missing. Bit of a shame. Domestic treble and record breakers. And the overall best 11 now does feature Labego in the striking role. Milovanovic on the bench. Tyler Adams remains as the DM in the best 11, which is fair enough. Really, he only left at the beginning of this year. No one's been added, I don't think. Oh, Gottschling's on the bench, having made 183 appearances now. And he's on the bench. How many appearances for us is that? Okay, in terms of league appearances, he's still 11 behind Livramento, so that's probably something to do with it, but whatever. As I'm doing this final team meeting to the 13 players that aren't at the World Cup, what was the point, really? You know what? We've got a lack of South Americans. Colombia is our training camp destination. Raise our profile in the country, see if we can just accidentally bring some back with us. And there's a legacy moment. New stadium plans will go ahead at a cost of 418 what? Construction of the Leeds United Stadium, didn't even bother naming it after a legend. I don't care it wasn't named after me. Frankly, it could have been named after Jose Labego because he's on the legend list. Of all the people that are on the legend list for Leeds United, they just called it Leeds United Stadium. 80,000 capacity. That's a stadium and a half. Wow. Sponsorship deal for 75 million. That's help. A loan of 183 million. Now, so they've just taken enough money out to make us have exactly 30 million in the bank balance, and then taken a loan out of 183 million as a result to cover the rest, and 75 million in sponsorship. Okay, and it won't be completed until 3 years' time. A lot of these numbers are bizarre to me. 3 years to build it, and 480 million it will cost. I mean, I'm not an architectural expert, but that feels like a lot. I get that you're building from scratch, so, 3 years build time, sure. But that feels like a lot of money, even for a stadium. Well then, that's it. It's actually a surprisingly disappointing finish, really, all things considered. But it's been an enjoyable ride. I think, basically, I've covered what I wanted to cover in this Legacy extension series. I feel like I have now provided a legacy. Last time I left things off, I let someone take over the team, simulated the future, and I wasn't happy with it. So I think I've left this team in a much better place, and now with a bit more debt, unfortunately, because of that stadium. But, that's not on me. The board does that anyway, without my input. So the important thing is the team structure is there, the legacy is there, the facilities are there, got them all to maximum as well in the process, the reputation is there, and we have just lost that final Champions League to the only team, I think, with a better European coefficient than us. We may have gone, I think we went first last year ahead of them because we won the Champions League, and now Bayern Munich will probably get it back this year as a result. That was a Champions League final between 1 and 2, effectively. So I can't be too mad if we've lost it and not retained it. We've still won it once, and we now have the FA Cup, which eluded us for 8 years. Just a quick question, I guess. Has anyone else managed a team in the Premier League for 7 years, won the Premier League 3 times at that point, won the Champions League, but not won the FA Cup? I had 3 Premier Leagues and a Champions League, then technically added another Premier League before we won the FA Cup. I'm not even certain how that's possible, really. And I hadn't even got to a final, let alone won it. Probably the most bizarrely elusive trophy I've ever had in Football Manager, that. 8 years it's taken. 8 years to even just to get to a final. Fulham won it last year. Fulham. Anyway, but there's a good set of players here now. Facilities are there. Stadium's on the way. We're the best, really, by a margin. I feel a lot happier to say farewell for real this time. Like I said, there's a chance I'll get bored and play it offline a little bit further. Maybe, see how a few of these players get on going forward, entering closer to their middle 20s and then primes, and then sort of bring you back maybe in like 4 years and go, hey, this is what we achieved in 4 years. Who knows? That video may be coming, but it won't be anytime soon. F1 Manager 23 isn't far off. So F1 Manager videos are going to obviously continue. We're still going to do those season by season over the near future, but the 2 Season 9 and Season 10 videos for this aren't going to be a thing anymore. That's the main point there. Is now going to be throwing my full offline focus into F1 Manager 22, just getting that done to a satisfactory degree before F1 Manager 23 turns up, where I am intending to do both a stream and a YouTube save separately. And speaking of streaming, I am back on Twitch doing the Check Your Save with Party Beat Say again, continuing on with that. Oh no, I've lost a lot of time to be doing a Build a Nation save now, but I'm still going to continue with it. It's going well, it's going okay. But now, obviously, without any FM offline distractions, I can put all my focus into doing that stream-wise now. So, see you over there. Links in the description for Twitch. Thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed this save, do like, comment, subscribe. And for now, until next time, ta-ra.